Stay tuned to Trust Raw Facts. I'm LBJ, and today we'll discuss the powers of the POTUS with the Trash Show. This election of 2024 has become full of concerts and guest appearances and comedians of a racist tincture. This begs the question, what are we voting for? Today, we will learn the 7 powers and the 10 responsibilities of the President of the United States. Let's edify. America, have we learned anything about the policies of either candidate in the 2024 elections? There are rampant floods, fake meat, and unnecessary chemicals in our food, let alone crickets. Again, has either candidate convinced you that they will protect not only the middle class, but the impoverished as well? The rich play a role in American society as well. We are all Americans. I, Lyndon Baines Johnson, know the importance of the common man. My first job after college was as a teacher in Cotulla, Texas, in a small Mexican-American school. Few of them could speak English, and I couldn't speak much Spanish. My students were poor, and they often came to class without breakfast and hungry, and they knew even in their youth the pain of prejudice. This is why, with several congressional acts throughout my 2-term presidency, the Great Society was created to close the springs of racial poison. Let us pray for wise and understanding hearts. Let us lay aside irrelevant differences and make our nation whole. We grew up knowing the President of the United States only has 10 responsibilities, but as with everything nowadays, that list has somehow Mandela into a list of 7. I will briefly explain those 7 responsibilities and then highlight the difference. You will see the empowerment in every act we established during my presidency. Both candidates now propose stripping Americans of civil liberties. The power of the president is not a one-day perfect storm of change. Trump has said on his first day he will rip up President Biden's policies on everything from energy to climate to immigration. He will cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity. Trump promised to return to where he left off at the end of his first term. He hasn't made a Great Wall yet. We wonder how many of his supporters remember that. On day 1 of the Trump presidency, he plans on restoring the travel ban and suspending refugee admissions. Trump vowed to only be a dictator on day 1. Trump is considering halting federal grants to police that decline to participate in mass deportations. By the way, that's the same tactic used on the American farmers. Donald Trump promises the largest mass deportation of undocumented immigrants in U.S. history if re-elected. His team is considering withholding federal police grants from local law enforcement agencies that decline to take part in the deportations. This would require martial law. Also, with the implementation of implied immunity, racial profiling would have no penalty. America, be mindful. This coming president will have presidential immunity, a first in our country's history. The Supreme Court concluded that the president is absolutely immune from criminal prosecution for conduct within his exclusive sphere of constitutional authority. Not all of the president's official acts fall within his conclusive and preclusive authority. As always with Trust Raw Facts, we include proper definition of the subject matter. Conclusive means something is decisive, convincing, or final, and there is no doubt about it. Preclusive means something is prevented from happening or made impossible. In law, preclusion and conclusive are used in the following ways. A claim has been decided conclusively and cannot be litigated again. This is also known as res judicata. A single issue has been decided conclusively and cannot be litigated again. This is also known as collateral estoppel, or a judgment based on a civil verdict may prevent issues from being litigated in a later case. For example, a guilty plea can have a preclusive effect on insurance coverage. So in layman's terms, if the POTUS makes a mistake because they overlooked something due to them being the first to make a decision, It's much harder to overturn that precedent than it is if a lower court makes the decision. Therefore, the president would be the first to decide, and if legally wrong, he or she would not be held liable. Here are the 5 main responsibilities of the president. Executive power. They are responsible for enforcing laws enacted by Congress. Military leadership. The president has ultimate authority over the armed forces. Appointments. The president nominates and appoints federal judges, ambassadors, and cabinet officials. Foreign policy. Negotiating treaties and recognizing foreign governments. The State of the Union address. The president is required to periodically address Congress with a State of the Union message. These responsibilities are defined in Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution. Here are the 7 presidential hats: Chief Citizen, Commander-in-Chief, Chief Diplomat, Chief Executive, Chief Host, Chief Legislator, and Chief Politician. The 3 primary duties of the President are Chief Executive, Commander-in-Chief, Ceremonial Head of State, and Chief Diplomat. The 3 categories of presidential power are expressed powers, delegated powers, and inherent powers. So as you are learning America, it is important to choose wisely. And as Unc Ben always said, with great power comes great responsibility. Kamala Harris stated on day 1, she will enact an opportunity economy, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life. She thinks that the American people are ready for a new way forward. Some say she is planning strict gun laws. To those who refuse to comply, good luck fighting the robots. Some Republicans call it big government until they need federal assistance. When I, along with Congress, passed the Acts for the Great Society, here is a list of what was entailed: the War on Poverty, the Social Security Amendments of 1965, Medicaid, and Medicare, the Higher Education Act of 1965, which established federally insured student loans, Head Start, 1965, and HUD homes. During my presidency, we also passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the Civil Rights Act of 1968, the Immigration and Nationality Services Act 1965, the Freedom of Information Act 1966, the Food Stamp Act 1964, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act 1967, the Public Broadcasting Act 1967, and the Bilingual Education Act of 1968, to name a few. Along with the FCC, we established the National Emergency Number 911-1968, and also the Urban Mass Transportation Act of 1964. You see, America, I was also a vice president, serving as VP for Kennedy from 1961 to 63. Then as your president from 1963 to 1969. So I know a thing or two about going from the VP to the Prez, and if America gets it wrong in 2024, just blame it on Clyde. As we've edified today, America, there is much to learn about the presidency. Hopefully, we've made one thing clear. Whoever holds the highest office in this corporation, I mean country, must have integrity and be absent of hate. For there are many different and valued types of Americans. I'm LBJ Trust. As always, stay safe. And thank you for learning with trust, raw facts.